Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Rob from Heroes Avenue. Happy Hump Day. I hope you guys are all having a great week so far. Now, we don't normally post on Wednesdays, but given what we talked about on this channel yesterday in yesterday's video, or specifically what Darren put out yesterday, the video on Dark Phoenix and why he won't watch it, I thought it was important that I brought this video out today and let you guys know my thoughts, because I know, reading some of the comments, that some of you guys have watched it. So, or some of you guys might be on the fence about watching it, given what Darren said, and what Darren is representative of a lot of the fan base out there. I was almost one of them. So let me, I'll put a timestamp down here on when the actual review will start. But first, I do want to say a quick thing on this X-Men franchise. So this X-Men franchise obviously has done a lot for the comic book movie loving community. At a time when Marvel was doing really bad, its back was against the wall back in the 2000s. Fox gets the rights to this X-Men movie and creates this great franchise that has had a ton of great movies in it. X-Men 1, X-Men 2. X-Men 2 was one of the best comic book movies out there for a long time until recent memory. Then X-Men: The Last Stand, which was their Simon Kinberg, the director of Dark Phoenix, his first try at the Dark Phoenix storyline. He wasn't directing it at the time, but I think he wrote it. He helped write it. Correct me in the comments down below. But X-Men: Last Stand was a miss, but definitely X-Men First Class was amazing. Days of Future Past was amazing. Apocalypse was another miss, and the Wolverine movies, out of those three, number 2 was okay. And Logan, we got one of the greatest superhero movies, in my opinion, of all time, in Logan in there. So this franchise has done a ton of good for the community, and it's a kind of a bittersweet way to send this off with a Dark Phoenix movie that is getting critically destroyed. Rotten Tomatoes is getting destroyed on that, and then you got a lot of fans out there who are just who just didn't go to watch the movie because of that fact, and because, of course, they're going to be transitioning into the MCU in the near future, I guess you can call it, even though it's not going to be in the next 4 or 5 years. But I've been a fan of this franchise, and I thought, hey, I didn't rush out to watch it, but I did watch it on Sunday. Bought a matinee ticket, went to the theaters, and I was pleasantly surprised, and can safely say that this movie does not deserve the Rotten Tomatoes score. It is way better than what the Rotten Tomatoes score would have you believe. And I know a lot of you guys don't like Rotten Tomatoes as a whole because it doesn't paint the whole picture, and a lot of us, some of our favorite movies are really low scoring on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's not indicative of what the fans think and how the movie actually is. Of course, it's always up to you to form your own opinion, but I almost didn't watch this movie because of the negative narrative surrounding it. But with that being said, let's get into this review of X-Men Dark Phoenix, directed by Simon Kinberg. So as you can see, divided it up into the good and the bad on the bar right here, and you can see it almost kind of evens out right there, and I think maybe more of the good than the bad. I don't know. This is just kind of me going off the cuff here. I wrote this down right before shooting the review. So let's get into it. The first act. I thought the first act of this movie was really, really good, and especially the opening sequence of this movie was one of the best team up moments that we've actually seen out of this whole franchise. Oh, by the way, there's going to be spoilers in this review if I haven't mentioned it already. So you have been warned, there will be spoilers. Okay, so it opens up with a scene where the X-Men are getting called out to save a space mission that has gone wrong. Obviously you don't know what's going on with the space mission, but the Phoenix Force is out there in space messing with whatever the mission's doing, and the X-Men get called in, and it's really cool to see that at this point in time there is a big time jump from the last X-Men movie, and I understand that continuity probably is all over the place, but with this Fox franchise, they've never been super hard on continuity, so in my mind I threw that out the window. So I just was taking the movie for what it was and what it was throwing at me. So, in this point in time, the X-Men are known in or all around the world, and there are fans of the X-Men. Charles Xavier gets a call from the president, sends his X-Men out to go save these astronauts that are out there. And I gotta say, the team up component of this was amazing. You know, you look at the roster they have there and think about, hey, how are they gonna actually do this in space? You know, and how creative can they be with these powers in space? And you'll be very surprised, pleasantly surprised about what they accomplished in that little mission. I thought it was so awesome seeing them utilize all of their powers together. Of course, you get to see them in their Grant Morrison-inspired X-Men suits. I thought that was cool. I know a lot of fans, and we still never got those comic-accurate suits for the most part, but it was cool to see that. Them in the same suits, them as a team. Quicksilver working with Nightcrawler. The only person that really didn't have anything to do in that opening scene was Jennifer Lawrence, Mystique. She was just more kind of the leader, which I always thought was kind of weird. I didn't ever see her fitting in as a leader in this team, but we'll get to that later. But yes, this opening sequence was amazing. The cinematography was great, and it introduced us it just jumps us right into the story with the whole Phoenix Force and how Jean Grey gets to absorb this enormous power. And it was just one of the greatest team-up moments in the X-Men franchise, and that's saying a lot given how many movies that are out there. Let's move on to the next thing, the Hans Zimmer score. You guys know on this channel that Hans Zimmer, man, that guy, he is my favorite music composer. Very, very close second. It's super close, him and John Williams, but Hans Zimmer is my favorite, and I think this could have been the top thing, man. The best thing coming out of this movie was the Hans Zimmer score. The soundtrack for this movie is amazing. Go listen to it on iTunes or Spotify, whatever you have. It just set the tone for the movie so well, and a lot of moments that might not have worked on screen or might have felt a little boring just gets enhanced by the score. And yeah, there's nothing more I can say. Hans Zimmer score is incredibly powerful and moving, and I could listen to this just going to go work out. I'm kind of weird like that. I go listen to movie scores when I work out, and this was one of the best superhero scores I've heard in a long time. Just go ahead and listen to it, guys. Do yourself a favor, even if you're not going to watch the movie at this point and you're just watching this. I don't know why you're watching this at this point if you haven't seen the movie, but if you haven't, just go listen to this score. It's amazing. It reminded me of Interstellar, which also another space movie, a Christopher Nolan space movie that he scored, and it was amazing, breathtaking. It was totally out of this world. Man, I can't say enough about it. I loved it. So moving on, James McAvoy. Gosh, this guy is an incredible actor, and you can see on sorry about that phone call. You can see on the sidebar here that I have James McAvoy up here, and I have Professor X down there. Kind of weird, right? So we'll get into that later, but I did want to address that. James McAvoy is an incredible actor. Every scene he is in, so captivating, sells his character incredibly well, even in moments where you think, again, like the moments that you wouldn't think Professor X might not say a thing like that. He sells it so well and makes it so believable. I mean, if you've seen his previous work, you guys know how talented he is, especially in Glass, which was a masterful showcase of his talent. Moving on, same thing goes for Michael Fassbender. I think these two guys, if I had one wish going into this MCU, going to this Fox transition to the MCU, it would be to recast James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as Charles Xavier and Magneto. These guys are incredible, and I just can't see no one else in the role, or I can't see anyone filling their shoes, because they're such incredibly good actors and fit the role so perfectly. They can pull out, where a lot of actors and superhero characters will be one note, really one note. These guys will steal the scene. They'll steal the scene from any other person out there, and to have them both in the same universe is just a treat for us fans. So Michael Fassbender was incredible as always, but I'll talk about him more in a second, because he's on there as Magneto as well as on the bad. So Sophie Turner, surprisingly, man, I didn't really think too highly of her, in Game of Thrones, though Game of Thrones was one of my favorite shows and book series. My favorite book series ever, the Song of Ice and Fire series. I didn't really think much of her as an actor in the Game of Thrones, but she killed it as Jean Grey in here, and she sold it. Every scene she was in, she really sold the hurt and strain that this Phoenix Force has on her. So I thought she was great. The callbacks to previous movies. You'll be, of course, without, this being the last movie in the franchise, of course there's going to be callbacks to previous movies. But again, you always feel rewarded as a fan to see these callbacks to previous X-Men movies that you've watched. And there's a lot of other Easter eggs as well going on throughout the movie. And it was really cool to see that. I was with my girlfriend when we watched it, and she hadn't watched a lot of the movies, so she missed a lot of them. They flew over her head, but I did enjoy hearing and them putting the effort into putting callbacks to other previous X-Men movies. And lastly, I'll say the good of this movie was the train sequence. Funny enough, this train sequence was a sequence that was part of the reshoots for this movie. There were extensive reshoots for this movie, and I'll talk about more of them in a second, but there was extensive reshoots, and the train sequence was a part of it to add more action. And I'm glad they did, because you get to see the X-Men team up. You get to see the X-Men team up in an awesome fashion to fight these beings who are trying to steal this Phoenix Force away and recreate their world. I forget what they're called in the movie, but there's obviously we get to see Storm finally get her due a little bit. I feel like Storm's been someone who's shortchanged in these movies, so we get to see Storm in action and kicking ass. And again, we get Nightcrawler's one of his coolest action sequences. Nothing's gonna beat the opening of X2, that sequence where he's possessed and almost killed the president. One of the best moments in superhero cinema out there, man. It's incredible. But you get to see him just go off in this train sequence. Like there's something that happens that triggers him. Well, spoilers. There's a death that happens. Just a little moment with this character that he had, and this character gets killed, and you get to see him just go ballistic on these guys, and that was awesome to see. And I just wish the fight sequence was a little longer, because I was enjoying it so much. And of course, you get to see Magneto go crazy, and the whole team, everyone teams up for this, so that was really cool. And let's move on to the pacing of the movie. Now, this movie, according to some reports now that I'm seeing, was meant to be 2 movies initially, but Fox had scrapped the plan. Obviously, the Disney acquisition had a lot to do with it, I assume. I read the headlines. I didn't actually read the article, so you can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But the pacing of the movie felt fast. While it was intended to be 2 movies, put into 1 movie, almost like a Justice League scenario. But it was never meant to be as big as the Justice League universe from Zack Snyder, so I'm not going to really try to compare it too much. But yeah, I thought it moved too fast at times. From the second act to the third act, you just get to the ending so quick. It just ends. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it other than, man, the ending just came so abruptly that it was like, it left you wanting a lot more. And if this was a movie that wasn't going to end the franchise, I would have been okay with it. Moving along, Jennifer Lawrence. Gosh, I have a huge dislike of Jennifer Lawrence. Now, I know a lot of people love her. I actually liked her. I liked her a lot in Silver Linings Playbook. She was great. What is that movie? The one where she's shooting a bow and arrow. I don't know why. The Mockingbird thing. What is that? I cannot remember right now off the top of my head. The Hunger Games. Yes, the Hunger Games movies, which made her famous. They were enjoyable. I just never liked her really as an actor, and I liked her even less in this role as Mystique. I mean, she was good in Future Past, but she just was not. She was phoning it in for the most part in both of these Apocalypse movies and this movie. She was phoning it in, and you could tell she wanted to die off, and she does get a cool moment where she just dies off. I'm glad it happened early on, because I didn't want to see her on screen anymore. You could just tell she didn't want to be there. And her dialogue. There was actually a scene in the dialogue where she goes, something like, "Hey, there's a lot of women saving us men here. We should call it X-Women." That was such a terrible line. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the dialogue, to be fair, probably not her fault, but I did not like Jennifer Lawrence in this role. Professor X. The reason why I put Professor X on here is because Professor X, given he is one of the most powerful mutants out there, he makes a lot of really stupid decisions in this movie. And if you make one bad decision, he just keeps on going with it. Him being one of the smartest people, does not see the error in his ways a lot of the times, and you would think that someone as smart as Professor X would, and would at least admit to those errors, and you know that plays a part in the movie as well. And again, I think that just has to do with the writing. Again, it has nothing to do with the actor. The actor is incredible. James McAvoy is incredible. Same thing goes for Magneto. Magneto, I wish he had so much more to do in this movie, because every time he was on screen, man, he just steals the scene. And he has almost nothing to do in this movie. And then the shot where he's about to get killed, I don't understand why Sophie Turner, Jean Grey, did not just kill him. I don't know. He just needed more to do in this movie. They should have utilized him a little more and put him more at the forefront, because he was so great in all of the X-Men movies he was in. The treatment of Cyclops, again, Cyclops doesn't get a lot to do in this movie, I feel like, at least. So Cyclops, out of all the X-Men movies, he's been shafted, probably one of the most. So it sucks, because we never get to see Cyclops really lead this X-Men team at all, and I would have liked to see that before this franchise goes. Lastly, Jessica Chastain's character. Apparently, the Skrulls used to be involved in this movie, but given how Captain Marvel used the Skrulls in their Captain Marvel movie, and Disney got the rights back to Fox, I don't know when in the timeline that happened, but it looks like that's why they changed a lot of what they did. So the Skrulls are not in here. Jessica Chastain has, I think she went on an interview and talked about how she didn't even know who she was playing anymore because of the reshoots. Like, her character and motivations got jumbled up so much that at the point of the reshoot, she didn't even really know what her character motivations were. So I'm not going to fault Jessica Chastain, who's a great actor, for her character in this movie. She just served to be the big bad, and ultimately her character was kind of a dud. I was waiting for a lot more, but didn't get it. So ultimately, there's what I think, the good and the bad, and I think overall I did enjoy it. I was glad I watched it, and at least I got to get some closure a little bit for this X-Men franchise, which I have loved and enjoyed for so many years. I was a kid when it came out in 2000, and here I am now on my own YouTube channel talking about this stuff, and I get to tell you guys my thoughts and say farewell to it. So that's my thoughts. If I had to give it a score, probably give it a C. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but not the greatest superhero movie in the world. But there are more redeeming qualities than you think. So let me know what you guys thought. Did you watch X-Men Dark Phoenix? What did you think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell for more videos like this. And one more quick announcement. We are going to be doing a giveaway for the a future Comic-Con coming up in Pleasanton, Powerhouse Comic-Con. So stay tuned for more info on that. Once we get it all solidified, you guys will be the first to know. Thanks, guys. Again, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.